Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the DFS show for football diehards. I am Armando Marsal. As always, with me is Bobby Gomes. How's it going, brother?
Going well, going well.
It is raining in New England. Hopefully, you stay dry today. Excited, man. We got a nice game slate today. Nice little main slate here on DraftKings, 10 games. Lots of interesting information. For as far as the early games, not a ton of news we're waiting for. It's a little bit more for the afternoon game. So I'm not sure we're going to have all of that news throughout the show, but definitely something to keep an eye on. We spoke Thursday, you and I. Has anything changed for you since Thursday, man?
A little bit. Just looking into like if I should fade Gurley in tournaments or be with the field. That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Yeah. I'm gonna be avoiding Gurley just because I like some of those running backs like in that 7K range a little bit more, and it's easier to fit two of those in. I like my build a little bit better with having maybe like a Kareem Hunt, James Conner instead of a Gurley and Jalen Richard or something like that. So kind of the way I'm steering right now. What's changed for me is basically roster build. I was pretty much going with value running back earlier in the week, and I've kind of changed now. I think there's some pretty decent upside value plays at the receiver position. We spoke about some of those on Thursday night. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Before we get going, we have a question here. It says a PPR need one. They got Cobb, Jalen Richard, Taylor Gabriel, or Hines. Any thoughts there, Bobby? I'm leaning – I want to say I'm leaning Gabriel here by a small amount. Richard's also interesting. But I think I'm going to lean Gabriel here, Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah, I would be more interested in Jalen Richard or Randall Cobb just because the weather in New York's pretty bad right now. I think Roto Grinders has it as a red in terms of just their weather forecast prediction. So I don't really love the passing game in that situation. So I'd probably go Richard or Cobb on that situation.
Yeah, this game is actually in Chicago, and it looks like it's just a little breezy, 60-mile-per-hour gust, but it's 49. Slight overcast is what I'm seeing here.
I'm sorry.
But yeah. We got one more here. Dalton or Goff, 6 points for a touchdown. That to me, I really like Dalton, but I think there's a lot of weather concerns. It looks like it's going to be raining. It's 51 degrees. Man, you know what? You're going who?
No, I have Goff as the highest.
You have Goff ahead of Dalton. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to lean with Goff here. I just think it's just a better situation, better offense here for him, and just the coaching there is so good that kind of tough to ignore. So I'm with you. We both like Goff here in this one. Let me see if there's any more questions before we get this going. Nope. So let's jump right into it, man. Let's start talking about the slate. The first game I want to talk about, Denver at Kansas City. Nothing has really changed here as far as the spread. It's 53.5. It was that on Thursday. It has gone down 2 points. Since it opened, the Chiefs do have a 31 implied team total. Broncos have a 22.5 implied team total. The only piece of news here is no Royce Freeman this week. He will not be playing. He has an ankle injury. Aside from that, everything else seems normal here. Give me your thoughts. Has anything changed for you in this game? Anyone you're targeting a specific here?
Well, in cash games, obviously you have to like Kareem Hunt. Just with his utilization in the passing game the last couple weeks. Also, Patrick Mahomes is in play. In tournaments, I think it's very interesting if you use Kelsey, just because I think he has 2 TD upside here at 6,800. And I think that they'll try to get him the ball, get him in the end zone. he didn't get in the end zone pretty positive the first time versus Denver. So might have to check that, but I still like Kelsey here for tournaments. And on the other side, Sanders, Keenum, kind of like that stack in tournaments. Just that's pretty much what I have. Lindsey is obviously a good play. It's just there's so much running back value on the board right now. And you mentioned the 7K guys. I think those guys are going to come into consideration with all the usage that they have in positive game scripts. So just an interest just to play him in cash is like a little not like nerve wracking. I think he'd be a great play. I don't know how much Devin Booker is going to cut in, and I'd rather go with someone who's going to get full usage.
Yeah, I'm as far as cash game is concerned, I totally agree with that take on Lindsey here. I will be playing him in tournaments. I think he's a very good price. I am a little concerned about, maybe the game script here, but he can catch passes out of the backfield. We've seen that in the past here. Chiefs have struggled against the run this season. So I think a really good spot for him. And he's going to get the red zone work at the end of the day with no Freeman in. I think he's going to be the one getting the red zone work here. So I do like also Kareem Hunt a ton. And I said it on Thursday. That hasn't changed for me. I'm pretty much starting my lineups with him and then building from there because this is just too good of a spot. The usage has gone up. His involvement in the passing game has just been much better than it was at the beginning of the season. We know how bad the Broncos have been against the run this year. Terrible, in fact. So really like him a ton. I think Kelsey makes for a very strong tournament play because I don't think many people are going to be paying up for him. And this is a good matchup. And I checked while you were talking. He did indeed score against the Broncos last time out. He did, and he got 20 fantasy points. So a good spot for him. I think he's going to go under-owned here. And I like your call on Sanders, man. I'm trying to fit him in my lineups. I'm really trying to do so, but the way I'm constructing them, I just can't. But I do like him a ton today. I think Demaryius Thomas is way too cheap. I know he hasn't been all that great this season, but there's just so much upside at that price. Under 5K just seems like, way too cheap for someone as talented as him. Do you have any interest in Thomas at all?
I like the price. Thomas is kind of dusty, though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so I don't know. The price is great. The game environment's awesome. But when it comes down to it, maybe in tournaments, but not much.
Yeah, it's
all too, because he could go at 4,900. He's the type of guy that can go for 20 points. So
that's what I'm saying, man. Like he has that upside. I think he's already done it, maybe once or twice this season. Actually once, but he's gone for at least 18 DraftKings points twice this season. It's just like you said. It's just too up and down. The good news is he has scored in 2 of his last 3 games. So I don't know. I like other guys in that price range as well. I think there's some nice upside. Someone like Godwin. I'm looking into this week. I think he's in a good spot here, but we'll get to that game later.
In Tampa, though, right?
Huh?
You said you didn't like the weather in Cincinnati. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Like the weather is concerning me there in Cincinnati.
So why would the game environment with DT over Godwin?
I don't know, man. I think Godwin is just more. I think he has more upside at this point. Like right now today, I think Godwin just has so much more upside, and I think they're gonna all right. So what quarterback? And I also like the quarterback situation better for Godwin. I mean, Case Keenum is just terrible, And I don't know the Chiefs defense. They did okay last week. I mean, they're not terrible. I mean, they're not good, but they did okay. I don't know. I feel like Godwin is just so much more talented, and the upside is so much higher. I also think he has a better floor too. Trust me, that's actually been my toughest decision this morning as far as my build, like what I'm doing, because I have enough to get Thomas in. But right now I do have Godwin in my lineups here. But that could change. That's why we do the Sunday show, because sometimes we do end up talking some sense into each other here. And we make some good decisions, and sometimes we make some bad decisions, but that's what we're doing the show here for. Any final thoughts here in this game, man? I mean, I think it's going to have plenty of fantasy goodness. I'm just so much more bullish on the run game for Kansas City than I am on the passing game. But I do think the entire offense basically is firmly in play here.
Yeah, I think the Broncos side of the ball is going drastically underowned just because of I don't think people are taking into account the game environment, the defense they're going up against, and just the situation. So I think there's tournament leverage there with them, but that's all I have.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. This game has a 48 over under here. It's shifted down 2.5 points since it opened. The Steelers have a 28.25 implied team total. They're 8.5 point favorites. Browns have a 19.75 implied team total. Give me your thoughts on this game, man. It looks like Steelers are going to be the chalk defense today. I don't know how I feel about that, man, but it's tough to kind of, fade them when there's going to be so many sacks available here for this defense.
Yeah, and Cash, I think you have to play Connor and correlate it with the Steelers' defense. I think that's just like a lock-in at this point. But no, I think you definitely fade the Steelers' defense in tournaments. I think that's the fade of the week. 4 tournaments is the Steelers' defense. That's pretty much what I'm thinking.
So it looks like Big Ben is going to be amongst like the most popular quarterbacks this week. I'm fading that chalk. I just don't, it's a good matchup. I guess you could say, the Browns haven't been, I don't know. I don't think it's a great matchup. Personally, I don't think it's a great matchup. On paper, it might seem like a good matchup, but Browns have actually been pretty solid. And they're, from what I'm looking at here at Football Outsiders, they're number 1 in DVOA against the pass. So pretty good, like not good matchup for Big Ben. I know he's had success against this defense, but I just don't think this is a spot where I want to roster him. There's so many other quarterbacks in that price range to me that have so much more upside in better spots. And I know Big Ben is playing at home where he plays his best football, but I don't know. I'm so much more bullish here on James Conner that I don't feel the need to roster Big Ben. I really, really like James Conner. I alluded to this at the beginning of the show where I'm pretty much going Kareem Hunt, James Conner, and then going from there. And that's kind of the way I'm building my lineups this week. I just think this is a good spot for him. His usage is high. He had a ton of success against this defense in week 1. He's catching passes at the backfield. He's a red zone back. So many good things. I think a good game environment here. They're favored. So this really stands out to me as a really, really good spot for James Conner. So I do think, he makes for a core play. Give me your thoughts on him and anyone else on this offense that you might be interested in.
Yeah, I like Connor, and we got a question in the chat about Vance McDonald, who I also like as well. I don't know if I'd play him with Gronkowski, but I think he's in a good spot versus Cleveland this week. I think a lot of the term that chalk is going to be on Uzoma and Njoku, and I think Vance McDonald is in a very good spot and could go overlooked. I don't even mind him in cash games. And then on the other side of it, Juju and AB, I'd rather play them than I'm with you in the mindset that I don't want to play the Ben chalk. Cleveland's actually been better versus opposing quarterbacks recently. So, yeah, I think that you could use Juju or AB, but I'm not going to use Ben.
Yeah, I agree. I think those guys are always in play. The wide receivers for this team, they're always in play. They manage to get it done. I mean, it just happens. They don't always hit the ceilings, but they definitely get it done on a weekly basis here. So I think they're fine. They're fine plays. They're not core plays of mine by any means, simply because I'm so bullish on James Conner. I agree with you on the McDonald call. I think he's an interesting tournament play. I probably won't have exposure. I'd like some other guys that we'll talk about later. But he is an interesting tournament play because there is plenty of upside there. And I'm with you. I wouldn't play him and Gronk together. If I'm choosing between the two, I'm going to play Gronk. I know it's raining over there where you're at, but I still think this game is in New England, right? Or is it in Buffalo?
It's in Buffalo.
Oh, okay. Do you know the weather there?
We both did that once on the show already.
No, man, but I wouldn't play McDonald over Gronk, man. So to answer the question, I would definitely not be playing McDonald over Gronk. Would you?
No, I'd probably not play McDonald. No,
It looks like this doesn't look like it's a DFS question though. So
yeah, I'd play Gronkowski over Gronk. I mean, I'd play Gronkowski over McDonald. But
yeah, over McDonald. Yeah, I agree. Being that Cleveland's going to be chalk, I actually like the idea of playing someone like Jarvis Landry, who has a ton of volume, nice floor, pretty much double-digit targets in every single game besides one, and that was in week 2 against the Saints. I don't know, man. I think he makes for a very strong leverage play here, especially, being that the Steelers are going to be, chalk today. So I like him. I think David Njoku is also a great play, but I do think he's going to be relatively chalky, like you mentioned. So if you want some leverage here, I think maybe Landry is going to go completely unknown and has what I think a very safe floor and a nice seating here. Any thoughts on that, Bobby?
No, I like Landry. I like Ryan. I think the Cleveland Browns offense is a good leverage play in tournaments off of the Steelers. So no, I'm not against it. The Cleveland Browns passing attack, not really talking about Nick Chubb. But yeah, I like Landry. I like the call.
I kind of want to like Baker Mayfield a little bit more. It's just I can't do it. He wasn't able to get it done against Tampa Bay last week. I don't know how he's going to be able to get it done at Pittsburgh with this pass rush of theirs. And they've had a week or 2 weeks now to prepare for him. So I think he obviously has upside, but not someone I'm going to be targeting. Before we move on to the next game, we got another question here. Godwin or Crabtree for an upside play? If you want upside, you got to go Godwin, I think. I just think there's so much more upside. Crabtree does have a nice floor, but if I'm looking for upside, in my opinion, I'm going to be going with Godwin.
Yeah, I'm very high on Crabtree this week. I just think he didn't have a great week last week. He plays – Godwin's – like in tournaments, I guess it makes sense, but in cash, I think I'd definitely go Crab just because he plays the majority of snaps. Godwin's like a rotational player, although Godwin has had a good portion of targets within the red zone. It's kind of crazy for the situation that he's in, where he's not playing all the time. He's getting a lot of looks down there. So I like Godwin for tournaments and Crab for cash, but I like Crab in tournaments as well.
I agree with that there. I think Crabtree makes good Crabtree's a good cash game play. I lean more Godwin in tournaments. I think both are good plays this week, though. I agree with Bobby on that. I do think they're in good spots and very fairly priced here. So, Jimmy, you have joined us just now. We have not talked about your Jets. We will get to that game soon, though. Bobby, anything else here on the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game before we move on? We already talked about the them being a chalk defense here, and you think it's a wise idea to fade them in tournaments. I kind of lean the same, but I'm having trouble doing so because of my roster build. So. But I do agree. I think getting creative with defenses is a good thing to do. But I am a sucker for these cheap defenses, guys. Any final thoughts here, Bobby, before we move on to the next game?
No, we covered pretty much everything.
Washington at New York taking on the Giants here. This game has a 44 over-under, but it has jumped up 2 points since it opened. The biggest jump of the week so far. 61% of the bets are on the over here. The Redskins have a 22.5 implied team total. The Giants have a 21.5 implied team total. On Thursday, you and I, talked about this game, and we said that maybe this is a game where we should have a little bit more interest in. I think Barkley is a very, very strong tournament play. I really, really do. I'm not doing it but I think he's such a strong tournament play because he has so much upside. This is not the best of matchups. I did write him up in the pivot play article that I do for Football Diehards. I just think, his involvement, his usage is so high, and the upside is through the roof. So, and aside from that, he also offers a nice floor. So there's just so many things to like about him. And his involvement in the passing game is pretty high. So definitely, I think a good tournament play. He's going to go completely overlooked here, but I'm not making him a core play of mine. Any thoughts on that take, and anything else here that stands out to you in this game?
So I actually think this game's pretty interesting. I was trying to decide between fading either one of Saquon and Odell and going heavy on the other in tournaments. I think on Sirius I actually gave Odell as my fade, but now I'm looking at playing both of them. So just thinking that I think this game's going to go – obviously, like, these two players can break a slate. Odell's might be facing the number 2 quarterback in Washington. They don't move Josh Norman. Like, he isn't gonna cover him one-on-one. So Odell has a real good matchup rating there, and I think he's got a little speed on the guy as well from listening to some other podcasts. So I like that play, and then I like Saquon just like as a fade of Gurley in tournaments. Like, I think Washington's 26th in DVOA versus the run. He obviously played pretty well versus Zeke last week. So it let a lot of people down, and not a lot of people are going to want to go to Saquon because of that. The Redskins have emphasized that they want to stop the run first. The problem is Saquon isn't your regular back. The Eagles wanted to stop the run too a couple Thursday nights ago, and it didn't really work out for them. I think Saquon went for 40. So – yeah, I like Saquon and Odell in tournaments once again.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think Saquon is such a strong tournament play. It's insane, man. But I don't play enough volume. That's the thing. I gotta kind of keep my core limited. I know you play much more volume than I do, so I think that's such a smart play. This week he has so much upside. I am not too high on Odell, but like you mentioned, he has slate breaking upside every week, regardless of matchup here. And they do want to start throwing the ball downfield. He might break for a touchdown here, but this is not a situation where I feel as strong as you do on Odell. I do think obviously the talent is there and the upside is there, but not someone I'm super bullish on this week. Anything else? Like, this is one of those games where I'm with you. I feel like I should have more interest in, but I really don't. I don't have anything for Washington or from that offense that stands out to me. I mean, you could talk me into someone like Jordan Reed just because, I think he's fairly priced for his talents. He just hasn't done anything this season. And this is a pretty decent matchup when you look at, how bad the Giants have been in the history against tight ends here. Anything there that stands out to you? Anyone that I'm missing?
You mentioned Jordan Reed. I'm not going to roster him, but I think in deep GPPs, like you said, they're very bad against the tight end position. Washington doesn't have a greatest assortment of pass catchers, so I think you can take a shot on Vernon Davis at 2,800. I don't think a lot of people are going to play him. And just in deep GPPs, if you're running it back with that Giant stack, Big Vern.
Yeah, man. I feel like he pays you to mention his name every show.
Yeah,
I think you're getting some kickbacks from Vernon Davis, man. Because we talked Reed and you mentioned Dave. How many lineups? So the listeners know, how many lineups do you need to be making in order to roster Vernon Davis in one?
Yeah, you need to be making a lot.
About 150?
Yeah, around that.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Before we move on to the next game, I think you're gonna have interest in the next game, and I heard you. I believe you mentioned this team on Sirius, and that you kind of got me onto some players here. But before we do that, let's talk about some of these questions here. Chubb or Shepard? I'm gonna go Chubb. I just feel like that you're going to get the ball there. I know you're going to probably lean Shepard, but I'm going to go Chubb.
Chubb, yeah.
There you go.
They're good against the run, man.
Yeah, I know. I just think he's gonna get the ball, and I think this game is gonna be closer than Vegas suggests. Pick 3 out of these half-point PPR: Cohen, Kamara, Lindsey, Beckham, Boyd. Thanks. He needs to win. All right, so I'm not sitting Kamara regardless. I'm not gonna sit Beckham in a season-long league. And geez, these are really good options here. I want to say Lindsey over Cohen. So I'm probably going to go Kamara, Beckham, Lindsey. I think there's just you have an easier path for touches for Lindsey than you do for Cohen, just because Jordan Howard is still there. I know Cohen has been great the last couple of weeks. I like him a lot this week as well. I wish you could play all of these guys, but this is a good group of guys you have here. So I'll be playing Kamara, Beckham, and Lindsey. You?
Yeah, Kamara, Beckham, Lindsey.
All right. Amo is asking what are the top chalk teams. I think Kansas City's good chalk. I think I want to say Cincy is good chalk, but the thing is the weather there is a bit concerning. I guess we'll get into that a little bit, more when we talk about that game. What else do you feel might be good chalk? I mean, I think this week running back good. The good chalk is at the running back position. I think James Conner, Gurley, Kareem Hunt. I think that's all good chalk. I really do. I think that's where you kind of have to just eat the chalk and then figure out the rest, at other positions. Any different takes on that for you?
Pitt, KC, Green Bay.
You think they're going to be chalk?
The Rams, but no, I don't think Green Bay is going to be chalk, but I think you should play.
I like them a lot.
Yeah.
I like Aaron Rodgers a lot.
I don't think those two games, man, the Rams-Green Bay game, like, you should have guys in those games. I know I said fade Gurley in tournaments. Like, I'm trying to decide if I want to fade Gurley in tournaments. I don't think I'd fade him fully. I'd probably be with the field on Gurley, but there's a game theory aspect that says you should probably fade him at that price tag. You definitely should fade him on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, you can probably play him. I don't know what I'm probably going to fade him, even though I should probably play a little bit of him. He's going to crush Green Bay today. You have to play cash today. You have to.
Yeah, I think you lock him in your cash game lineups without a doubt. I mean, I just think that's the way to go. You start your cash game lineup with Gurley and figure out the rest as you go. I totally agree with that. I think he is fadeable in tournaments because I do think some of these 7K guys have somewhat similar upside to Gurley this week, considering their situations. All right, that's the questions. Let's move on to the next game. And this is Seattle at Detroit. This game has a 48.5 over-under. The Lions have a 25.75 implied team total. The Seahawks have a 22.75 implied team total. I think you like the Detroit stack here. Is that so?
Yeah, I like Stafford and Galladay a lot for tournaments. Who's Galladay again? Shaquem Griffin or?
Oh yeah, Shaquille Griffin.
Which one? Yeah, he's in. Yeah, I like Galladay.
Shaquille Griffin with a 23% advantage rating, according to Pro Football Focus, sir.
Yeah, Galladay's way too cheap. On DK at 5,700, probably should be a 7K guy.
And I hopefully will be thanking you at 4:30 today after my lineups because of you. I did roster Galladay in my main lineup. I agree. I think I dug into him after. I think you spoke about him on Friday, right? On SiriusXM.
Yeah.
Yeah. After that, I did a little digging into him and saw that you point out some good things. I do like him quite a bit here. I'm with you. Anything else here for this game that stands out to you? I know you're bullish on the Stafford Galladay, but would you consider like Golden Tate as well or Marvin Jones?
The Seattle side probably more than most. It's not the running backs, and I think a lot of people are going to Carson, but I think that Detroit just traded for Damon Harrison, who obviously has been a very good run stuffer throughout his career, one of the best, if not the best in the league. I think Detroit could funnel to the pass here, and it's just a matter of like who you're going to play with Wilson. You could play Wilson by himself because Wilson breaks slates. Like he has the ability to do that. I definitely would have some Wilson exposure. As for his receivers, who's getting Slay? Probably Lockett. Is it Lockett?
I think so. It is Tyler Lockett, yes.
Yeah, so I like David Moore and Baldwin, but I still like Lockett. But David Moore and Baldwin, I think David Moore more for GPPs and that deep GPPs with Russ and Baldwin. You can use Baldwin in cash or GPPs. I think that Detroit's going to funnel this week for some reason.
And David Moore actually comes out as one of the, he has one of the highest advantage ratings of the week at 21%. He's expected to get Tease Tabor. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly, but who grades out well below average over at Pro Football Focus. In fact, he grades out to be the worst corner this week. So I think that's a really good call by you there.
David Moore.
I'm sorry?
David Moore.
There you go. I mean, hey. Listen, that's why we do the show. You find some of these things. He's 3,600 on a week where if you're trying to fit, someone like a Gurley in, he makes a ton of sense. And he has 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He's certainly seen the rock, in the red zone here. So I do think someone that you should be considering here. Touchdown upside is clearly there. Anything else? This is one of those games where I don't have much, honestly. For me, it's Kenny Golladay, and that's it. I thought about maybe Golden Tate because I do think, he always has a nice upside, and he offers a pretty solid floor. But I'm more, I'm looking more for that upside that I think Kenny Golladay offers here. So I'm going to take the savings, especially in a week where the savings is needed. To take the 300 extra and just use it somewhere else. But Kenny Golladay is my guy here. Aside from that, I really have nothing in this game. I agree. I think fading because I do think Carson's going to be somewhat chalky. The Seahawks are seemingly trying to run the rock more. It's been successful the last couple of weeks, but I don't think, like you said, I think this might be a game where some of the changes to the defensive line could keep Carson from having a big game. So I'm fading that chalk here this week. I got nothing else from this game, man. I don't know if you do before we move on to the next.
Oh, yeah, we can move on.
Tampa Bay at Cincinnati, guys. There is some weather concerns here. Apparently, it is supposed to be raining throughout the majority of the game from kickoff to basically, for what I see here, through the third quarter. It doesn't seem like very high or very, it says drizzle here from what I'm looking at, so it doesn't appear like it's going to be like torrential rainfalls like we see here in Miami. Still, I don't, I'm not going to let this affect my approach to this game as much. I still think Andy Dalton is a strong play. I still think Jameis Winston is a strong play. I still like, the wide receivers here for Cincinnati quite a bit. I think A.J. Green is a very strong play. I think he is priced appropriately, though, making it tough to fit him in, especially with my roster construction at this moment. I think Tyler Boyd is interesting. I mentioned, earlier in the show, Chris Godwin. Listen, I just think that this kid is very talented. I think there's a nice upside. He certainly has, the touchdown upside. We've seen it multiple times this season. They do spread the ball here a lot in Tampa Bay, which is concerning. But if I'm going to pay for anyone here, it's going to be him because he is very cheap. So that, to me, there's so much upside there to be had in a good game environment. I know that, the rain might be concerning, but it's still a good game environment when you consider the defenses he's going up against, or the defense he's going up against, and both defenses here. Neither of them could really stop anyone. So I still think this is a good spot for this passing game from both sides. And, you mentioned earlier CJ Uzoma. He's going to be chalk, rightfully so. He's only 3,500. This is a really good matchup. The tight ends have just crushed Tampa Bay all season long. They're allowing the most fantasy points per game to the position. Give me your thoughts here, man, because I still think this is a very strong game. And let me just give you the Vegas numbers before I let you break it down. It's a 54.5 over-under here. It's moved up a point since it opened. The Bengals do have a healthy 29 implied team total, and the Bucs have a 25.5 implied team total here.
Yeah, no. So I'm not really high on this game as you are. I like AJ Green. I have Mixon ranked very high, but I just don't like playing Mixon, and I'd rather just fade him with all the value on the slate. $1 I have the second best play. I don't want to play him. I'd rather just go for the fade. On the other side, Jameis is great, but is he great? He's good at fantasy. Then you have to pair him with someone, and it's just is it going to be Deshaun Jackson who asks to get traded, or is it going to be O.J. Howard or Cameron Brate? Is it going to be Mike Evans? Because no one can roster Mike Evans and get him right. There's not enough that I like this. Mike Evans is actually probably going to be really low on this week. So if you want to go that way, it makes sense. But then on the other side of it, to go against what I'm saying, is Cincinnati's defense is extremely banged up. So Tampa Bay, it could work, I guess. I don't know. And I always his versus Winston, even though I said the Bengals defense is pretty banged up. I always I think Winston will throw a pick. So if you get picks, some sacks, it's never a bad thing, right?
Yeah, and I'm not super bullish on the Bucs side of the ball here. I do think Winston is a very strong play because he's going to sling it. So only because of that, because he's going to be forced to throw the ball here. They don't really have a good run game. They typically are chasing points. So they're going to let him sling it. I actually talked about it on Thursday. I wouldn't mind playing him naked. I just don't think that you need to pair him up with anyone. If I am pairing him up with someone, it's going to be Godwin, because I do think that you're getting a very good, you're getting a nice ceiling for a very, small price. So I agree. I think Evans is going to be unowned here. I still don't think that this is I don't know. I just don't think this is a phenomenal spot for Evans. He clearly can have a big game against any defense here, but I don't think this is a great spot for him. I'm more excited about the Bengals side of the ball here. And I'm with you. I'm fading Mixon. I think he's going to be very popular this week, but I still like some of those other guys in that price range a little bit more than I do Mixon. So I'm definitely going to be, fading him this week. The usage is there, but as we saw, he is human. We saw it last week. So he could definitely have a, subpar game in this contest here. So I like, Dalton to Green, Dalton to Boyd, even, Uzoma here, but not my top stack at this point. It was earlier in the week, so that has changed for me. Still think they're top, 4 stack, top 3 stack, but not a top, stack like it was at the beginning of the week for me. However, I do still like them quite a bit here. Anything else here in this game before we move on? We have some questions here that I'm going to get to now, but just want to make sure we close this game and we cover it all.
No, I think we got pretty much it. Majority.
Okay. So we got 3 questions here that I want to get to. 2 PP. All right. So we need 2 PPR, 10 team, or 2 point per reception, 10 teams. All right. So you're getting 2 points per reception here. Do I risk playing Gronk or use Olsen or Doyle? I'm going to play Gronk. I mean, with those kind of options, we don't know what we're going to get from Doyle. Haven't really seen much out of Olsen. I just think the upside is there for Gronk and a good matchup at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm with you. Play Gronk. Tre'Davious White is a really good cornerback. So I think Gronk probably gets back going. He's hometown narrative in Buffalo. Gronk has a good play.
And I think, believe it or not, with Sony Michel out, I really do think that helps his red zone work for Gronk. At least I think. But that might be just looking a little bit too deep into it. All right, the other question, start Lindsey or Kerryon Johnson. For me, it's Lindsey. Pretty easy. Yeah. However, I think we messed up by not talking about Kerryon Johnson in the other one, because I do think he's interesting tournament play just because he's going to go unowned. And, if the game script does play it to the favor like we think it is, like we both think Detroit should be winning in this game, I think Kerryon Johnson could have, 17 plus touches once again this week. I don't know how effective he's going to be in those touches, but the volume should be there. However, I still think Lindsey is a much better play than Johnson this week.
Yeah, I'm going to play Lindsey over Kerryon. I know a lot of people like Kerryon Johnson. But Lindsey doesn't have anyone vulturing touchdowns, and Kerryon does with Blount. So I think you have to go to Lindsey, and he's in a better game environment.
Yeah. Then we have, do you play the 49ers defense and GPPs today? I don't, but I can see the reason why. They're going up against Josh Rosen here. But I can't play that defense. They just haven't been that good this year.
Yeah, the 49ers D, I'm not going to play them. I will play some Arizona Cardinals defense, though.
I agree. I think that's a better play as well. I do agree with that. All right, these are the questions that we had. Let's move on, and I hope Jimmy is still hanging around here listening to you and I, because the game he was tuning in for is the one we're going to be talking about next, and that is the Jets headed to Chicago to take on the Bears. This is a game where I really think, the Bears are going to just pretty much be in full control at all times. It is worth noting this game opened at 46 over-under, and it's now at a 41.5 over-under, 8 downward 4.5 move here. I think that's very, very important. You have to take a note of that there. So something to really consider. The Bears have a 25 implied team total. The Jets have a 16.5 implied team total here. Give me your thoughts on this game. What do you think here?
Yeah, so I like both running backs in this game for tournaments, that being Crowell and Jordan Howard. Chicago's a 9-point favorite at home, and no one's going to play Jordan Howard. He's at 4,800. So if you want to differentiate your builds and go high at receiver and then low at maybe low at running back, I think these two guys give you that opportunity. Mostert's in that conversation as well. I outside of that, I don't love anything. I don't think a lot of people are going to play Jermaine Kearse in cash games, and I think you could play Jermaine Kearse in cash games again this week because he burned everyone last week. And if you didn't play him last week, then it's not a terrible play this week because he's been complaining about not getting the ball. So, and they have no one else to throw to, so they're going to throw to him. The weather isn't great though, so don't love the passing game. Anthony Miller is going to be chalk on the Chicago side. You definitely play him in cash. Fade him in tournaments just because of the weather. And we talked about a guy like David Moore or a couple other guys you can talk about later that will probably be good fade options of Anthony Miller in tournaments. Pretty much all I got.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I was a little bit more interested in the passing game for the Bears early in the week. I thought Trubisky was in a good spot. This is a banged-up secondary, but I don't know if the game script and the game environment is going to call for him to throw a ton here. So I still think he's in a good spot. I still think he's a viable option. I'm just not as bullish as I was earlier in the week on him. I agree. I think Jordan Howard here makes an interesting play. He's very, very cheap. I am a little concerned, with his workload, how it's gone down in the last 3 weeks. Again, a lot of that maybe has to do with the matchups. It was against the Bucs, the Patriots, Miami, all of which are really, really, beatable with pass catching backs. This is an interesting call, man. You kind of stumped me here because I had thought about him early in the week, and I kind of decided not to go in that direction. But, man, now that you mention him, it really is interesting here. I'm going to really look into him a little bit more once we get off because I do think he's in an interesting spot. I think the game environment is going to favor him. I don't have anything from the Jets side of things. I do still think Trey Burton is an interesting tournament tight end. No one's going to be on him. He has scored in each of his last 3 games. He has now, I think, 4 touchdowns for the season. Trubisky looks at him closely. I believe with Allen Robinson, questionable here. He's not expected to play. So I do think Burton is going to be. Oh, look, Amo just said it. So Allen Robinson ruled out. So I think Burton gets the main benefit. He's the main beneficiary of that because I do think that he's going to see a lot of that red zone work that Allen Robinson would have seen. So I think he's the main beneficiary. I do bump now all the receivers here for Chicago a bit more. When you look at it, I think Tariq Cohen also gets a bump here with the with that news. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Tariq Cohen and Burton are both the leaders here in targets for the Bears. So I think they're just going to get another boost here. Does that change your mind here about someone like Taylor Gabriel at all at 5,100?
I knew Robinson was out. That's why I said Anthony Miller is the chalk in tournaments.
Okay, so he was officially ruled out already?
Yeah, he was already – I should have mentioned it. It was
okay, because that just popped up on my feed now, and I saw Amo write it. So I thought, okay. So I didn't know. So, yeah, so he has been ruled out. Okay. It's official now. Yeah. So I think Burton is a strong tournament play, honestly. I don't think anyone's going to be on him. And I think some of those touchdowns that the Bears score might come out of him. So I think he's I think he's a good pivot off of someone like Njoku. There's also one more guy that I like quite a bit. We haven't talked about him yet. We're going to get to that game shortly. But he is in that game that we said we both like quite a bit, the Packers game. But yeah, man, this is one of those games where I had more interest earlier in the week on the Bears side of things, but it's kind of, not as exciting for me as it was then. I think the Bears defense are in a smash spot, just tough to pay up for defense this week, especially when you have someone like Pittsburgh at 2,300. But I think if you're trying to be different and you're trying to be unique, I think paying up for the Bears will definitely create you a unique lineup. Any thoughts on that?
No, yeah, I like that call. Paying up for the Bears and pairing them with Howard.
There you go. Man, you're going to make me construct an entirely different lineup here. I will definitely be considering some of that maybe in the Millionaire Maker. I think that's a pretty good way to build your roster without having to, be too concerned about them being chalky. Anything else for this game? Because it just seems like one of those games where it doesn't look like a good game environment for fantasy.
Yeah, the passing game in this Anthony Miller chalk is like completely fadeable in the Millionaire Maker. Just letting everyone know. With the weather and I don't know, I think there's a lot better options.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. So this is the way I view it, and I agree with you 100%. This is the way I view it, though. If you don't make changes to your lineups to fit in Anthony Miller, that's the way I would put it. That's the way I would phrase it. Would you agree with that? Like, don't, because at this point, most people have their lineups. Don't make arrangements to your lineups, right, to fit in Miller. Now, if you have someone like Moore in your lineup and you want to pivot to Miller, I mean, by all means, I wouldn't recommend it, but things like that. I guess that would be the way I view it. Now, if you're creating lineups and you're trying to, fit in Gurley, Connor, and Hunt, and you need Miller, go ahead. But I don't suggest it either. Any final thoughts here before we move on to the next game?
That's pretty much it.
All right, we got Baltimore headed to Carolina to take on the Panthers. This is one of those games where, Bobby, I have nothing in. It's a 44 over-under. The Ravens have a 23.25 implied team total. The Panthers have a 20.75 implied team total. Talk me into someone here because I have 0 from this game.
Yeah, we can I think the Ravens defense in tournaments is interesting. I like Crab and John Brown, also Alex Collins, but just in tournaments, except Crab. I think you can use Crab in cash.
I agree with you. I think that would be the only play, and that completely slipped my mind. But Crabtree is, to me, a strong play. He's very cheap. Aside from that, though, this is not a game I have a ton of interest in. I agree that the Ravens are a strong tournament play because they can accumulate fantasy points easily here. I think Cam can make mistakes. I do think that this is still an offensive line that struggles, so they can get sacks here. The Ravens defense, that is. So I like that. But aside from that, they're not core plays. And you can always talk me into John Brown as a tournament play because he has that big playability and he's very, very involved in this offense. But he's not making my player pool this week. I just think someone like Golladay is so much of a stronger play than John Brown is this week. All right, let's skip on over then to the next game, and this is a game where I like quite a bit here, and that's Indy headed to the West Coast to take on the Raiders. It has a 51 over under here. The Colts have a 27 implied team total. The Raiders have a 24 implied team total. I'm gonna play Andrew Luck, and I'm gonna pair him up with T.Y. Hilton. I mean, I just think that's the way to go this week in tournaments. I don't think they're going to be that popular of a combination. I think there's plenty of upside. This is still a Colts offense that's going to throw the ball. I think the Raiders are going to do a good enough job to keep it close where Andrew Luck will have to throw the ball here. These two just, Luck has been playing out of his mind lately. At least 3 touchdowns in each of his last 4 games. 3 of those with 4 touchdown passes. Aside from the last game, he's been slinging it, over 40 times a game. On the regular, we've seen him as far as 62 pass attempts in week 4, 59 in week 5, 43 in week 6. I mean, this guy's just slinging it. He's thrown it over 50 times in 3 games this year. I like this situation quite a bit. The Raiders defense has been awful. So talk to me about this game, and let me know what you think about this combination of T.Y. and Andrew Luck.
No, I like T.Y. and Luck a lot, especially if they're going to throw it to each other. Luck's is Doyle playing? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's expected to play. Let me see if there's any official word here. But I believe he has been. I believe he was off the injury report as of Friday. Yeah, he wasn't listed on the injury report on Friday. So he's gonna play. That to me, Eric Ebron is off the table for me because of that reason. I still think there's touchdown upside like we saw earlier in the year when they both were playing, but I just think that the volume is going to decrease by a good amount, making it a very difficult decision to decipher. Aside from Hilton, for me, there's really no other pass catchers for the Colts that stand out to me because Doyle's back this week. Any thoughts on that?
Pass catchers for the Colts? No, yeah, I'm pretty much off. Other than Y and Doyle, maybe.
Marlon Mack is coming off a pretty good game. He's questionable. It looks like there's a good shot that he's going to play. He's dealing with an ankle injury. We saw him also, involved last week in the pass catching responsibilities with 2 receptions. One of them going for a touchdown. Any thoughts on him? I think he's going to be somewhat popular this week. I'm not going to go there. I feel much better about someone like Lindsey than I do over Marlon Mack. But maybe you can talk me into some Mack here.
The Mack attack. No, I don't think I'm going to try to talk you into any Marlon Mack. I think you can fade Marlon Mack this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anything on the Raiders side? I know we talked about Jalen Richard being interesting at 4,200. I still think he's interesting. I still think he's very viable this week. His role in the passing game is going to remain significant. We look at his targets in all but one game this year, at least 5 targets, 14 targets in the last 2 games, 13 receptions in that span. I think there's plenty of upside there for him. I think this is a good matchup. I think this is a good game environment. I just think this is all around good spot for Jalen Richard here at 4,200. He's really the only Raider that's making my player pool this week, and maybe that's a mistake, but really the only guy that stands out to me from Oakland side of things.
Yeah, I think you got to try to figure out in cash games, if you want to use any of these Raiders guys, Jordy Nelson is one that's been talked about. Definitely do not use Martavis Bryant. People will do that in cash this week, and that's just not a good cash game play. And then Jalen Richard, he's going to be thought about in cash, and I just don't love it. Yeah, and then there's this one play that I think is kind of interesting, especially with Anthony Miller now being chalk or around chalk in tournaments, 17 to 20%. He's at 3,400, but Seth Roberts in the slot for Oakland. He's the longest tenured Oakland receiver. He's going to be in the slot versus the Colts, who give up a lot of yardage to slot receivers. He's going to be at 3,400, so I think he's a good fade of Anthony Miller in tournaments, and I hope I don't use him in cash.
It is worth pointing out that Seth Roberts has 13 targets in the last 2 games, so you might be onto something. He won't be making my player pool again because I don't play enough volume, and I think someone like him should be considered when you're playing high volume. If you're building a handful of lineups, would you be suggesting him? Let's say if someone was building
I know what you play. Like, I'm telling you, if Anthony Miller is going to be owned at 20% in a game that the weather is going to be awful and you can't throw the football and you want to pivot and like even the 153 max, like I think Seth Roberts is a viable option if you're building that way.
Yeah, and that's a good point there. That is a good point. Any final thoughts here on this game? I think we covered it pretty well, and I think that was a good, last minute call there with Roberts. The volume has certainly been there. Any Jared Cook for you? Is he someone you're going to be considering?
You could use Cook. I'm not going to use Cook. I guess.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not going there.
No, I know you. But people could use him.
I think that price is a bit too expensive, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to this next game here, and that is the 49ers against the Cardinals, a 41 over-under. It's gone down 2 points, the total here, since it opened. Neither team have an implied team total higher than 21.25 points here, a 1.5 point spread. Anything from this game for you, Bobby?
I like the Cardinals' defense in tournaments. Not much though.
Yeah. I was a little bit more excited about Raheem Mostert earlier in the week, but now Matt Breida appears that he's going to play, which is kind of throwing me off of Raheem Mostert here. Any thought? I know you had interest in him as well. Any thoughts on him now, or?
Oh no, I actually like Mostert. I like him in tournaments.
Okay, you still like him regardless of Breida here, or Breida?
Yeah, I personally think he's a better running back than Breida.
I agree. I think he's more efficient too.
Yeah,
he's been more efficient with the limited amount of time that he's gotten on the field. So I agree.
And this Cardinals defense isn't good against the run. So a lot of people.
Awful.
Yeah, like I said, I was looking at Crowell and Howard, like Mostert. Probably a good if Crowell was chalky or one of these guys were chalky, I'd probably be looking to Mostert.
Yeah. No other defense has allowed more rushing touchdowns this season than the Cardinals, and they have allowed 959 rushing yards second. And the only team ahead of them is the Dolphins, who are already played this week. So I wouldn't be surprised by the end of Sunday, Arizona back on top with the most rushing yards allowed to opposing running backs here. I do think he's a good play. I like David Johnson. I do. I just can't play him. Really, it's more of a price thing for me. I think he's cheap at 6,700, but there's just so much more upside in that price range than we've seen Johnson flash this season. Therefore, I don't think he's a strong play. If you're playing the afternoon-only slate, I definitely would consider Johnson. But in the main slate, I'm not going to be rostering him this week. Any thoughts on that? Anything there for you?
No, I think that's a good play not to roster him. I would just let it play out, see how Leftwich uses him. I know he says he wants to use him, but let's just see it first and then go from there.
Yeah. And then, George Kittle is interesting to me. He really is. I'm not going to go there because I don't want to pay, this price tag for him. But I still think that he's going to get the targets. I think he has upside. He's pretty much their best pass catcher there on this offense, but not a spot I'm going to be going to this week simply because of price, not because of anything else. If he was in that 4,500 price range, it would be a no-brainer for me. And then on the other side, I mentioned him earlier in the week. Christian Kirk, to me, seems like a pretty, enticing tournament flyer at 4,500. I just think there's, some upside there. We've seen him be utilized a lot in the passing game here. He and Josh Rosen obviously have a connection. So I think there's some upside to be had here. I think this is a good match for him. Not a core play of mine, not someone that I'm going to, be heavily invested in, but I definitely would be considering if I'm playing a lot of lineups this week. Any thoughts on any of those two guys I just talked about?
No, I get why you'd like both of them. I think you pretty much gave a good reasoning for him. I'm not really going there.
All right. Final game of the week, one that we're probably going to have a lot to talk about here, and that is Green Bay at Los Angeles taking on the Rams. It's a 57 over-under here. Pretty big number there. The Rams have an implied team total of 32.25. The Packers have a 24.75 implied team total. It is worth pointing out that the Rams were 10-point favorites to start the week, and now they're only 7.5-point favorites. A lot of the betting here is going with the Packers against the spread, 67%, in fact. Give me your thoughts here, Bob, because I think we're both pretty excited about this game. Let me know where you stand here.
Yeah, so the Rams are going to run out like 11 personnel and then stretch Gurley the entire game. And they're also going to use Goff. And 11 personnel is they'll have 3 receivers on the field at all times. And Rodgers is going to force Goff to throw. So I think Gurley's going to get really good usage. I think Goff's going to get really good usage. Both are like locks and cash games for me. You could use Robert Woods as well. And then on the other side, like the Packers aren't going to be very highly owned, and Rodgers is really good, and so is Devontae Adams. I would use them in tournaments. And then you're waiting on news for Cobb, which we might have gotten, but we probably didn't. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Jimmy Graham's too cheap at the tight end position too.
I alluded to earlier that there was a pivot play that I liked quite a bit from David Njoku when I was talking about Trey Burton, and that was him, Jimmy Graham. I just think this is a good spot for men. This middle of the Rams defense can be vulnerable. We've seen it this year a couple times already. I think Graham is going to go completely overlooked, and this is a game where the Packers are going to have to throw the ball because they're going to be chasing points. They really don't have a strong running game here. So I think the red zone work, a lot of that's going to come to Graham. So I like him quite a bit. I think, running it back with him, it's going to be tough to fit in Adams, but if you're running it back, I think running it back with Graham makes a lot of sense. He's going to get – I wouldn't be surprised to see him get in the end zone this week. The targets are going to be there, and I like Aaron Rodgers a lot here too. To me, it's Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Graham from the Packers side. I think they're all very strong plays. And then from the other side, you mentioned Jared Goff in a good spot. I like the idea of pairing up Jared Goff with Todd Gurley because you're going to get all the touchdowns from this offense if you do that. And we know that Gurley does have a high role in the passing game here for the Rams. I think even more so now with Cooper Kupp out. I like Robert Woods quite a bit. I think he's a very strong play. He let a lot of people down last week. I think it's fine to go back to the well here. Not that high on Brandon Cooks, though. Not someone that I feel that I need to roster this week because I'd be making a mistake if I'm not. So I think he's in play, but not someone I'm highly targeting this week at all. Pretty much that's it for me. I mean, I think it's the obvious plays from this game are the usual suspects that are always getting it done from both sides of the ball here. So I think they're all very strong plays, though. And I do think this is a perfect time to game stack this game here because I do think it's going to produce plenty of fantasy goodness. And I don't think it's going to be as lopsided as Vegas might have projected it to be. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer than we anticipated it is, which is good because that means that both offenses will be rolling at all times here.
Yeah, no, I see it the same way you do. I think it's a great game stack. Cooks might be kind of sneaky in tournaments, just to throw it out there, especially with the game.
Yeah, he does have that upside. There's
no cup, so you got to figure. Yeah, he could in tournaments. I think he's a little more interesting than maybe you think. But I don't know. Like you make a good point. If you don't like Brandon Cooks, don't play Brandon Cooks. I don't know. I don't really like him, so I don't usually play him. But with Cup out, I think there's more value in playing him in a game that's as highly total as this.
Yeah, and I agree because I do think he has a ton of upside. It's just he's very volatile, man. And I feel weird paying more for Brandon Cooks than Robert Woods. It just feels weird doing that. If he was cheaper than Woods, then yeah, okay, I have a little bit more interest in him. But the fact that he's not priced lower than Robert Woods just makes it more difficult for me to roster him. I probably will have full blown Ram stacks in the I typically like to sometimes break down the slates and I'll play just the afternoon slate only or the 1 p.m. only. I probably will have full blown game stacks of this game in the afternoon slate only, and he will be part of that. For sure, Brandon Cooks will be part of that because I do think that his ownership will be far less than someone like Robert Woods will be because of his price. But I do think Woods is just a superior play here as far as value and ceiling here. But this is just a great game to target, guys. It really is. Bobby has been pretty much talking about it all week long, and Vegas hasn't really moved too much with this game. That the spread has actually moved in the favor of the Packers here, so good because we should not be expecting a blowout. We should get a full 4 quarters of Aaron Rodgers and this offense. So really like this game a lot here. I think it's very, very playable because I do think a lot of these guys are fairly priced, in my opinion. Aside from Gurley, it's pretty easy to fit everyone else in this matchup. And you got Devontae Adams cheaper than AJ Green. And even though this is not the best match for him, the guy just does it against any defense, basically here. Any final thoughts here, Bobby, before we close out the show? And then I think there's a couple questions that we got to get to here in the queue, but any final comments on this game here?
I think we covered it.
Yeah. So let me see. Yeah, we got a question here. It's the last half-point PPR flex position. Devin Funchess or Jalen Richard? I'm going with Richard.
Yeah, I'm going Richard.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you let everyone know before we get going where to find you on Twitter and Instagram? And if anyone has any questions, they can always reach out to us there. Yep. Bobby?
Bobby Gomes DFS on Instagram and Twitter.
And I am at Armando_Marsal on Instagram and Twitter as well. Look forward to being here again next week with you, bro. And good luck to everyone this weekend.
Yeah, good luck to you guys.